Before we start, let me get a little bit of water here. My throat's a little dry. All right, there we go. All right, where we starting here? Alan Menken was born on July 22nd, 1949 in Manhattan. His early influences were Beethoven and Fantasia. Oh man, I like me some Fantasia. I wish I could do that stuff with the broom. My old lady is busting my balls to clean the kitchen every other day. Oof, man. But anyway, back to Menken.
I honestly think I was very influenced by Fantasia because it was these classical pieces and the imagery along with it, and I was just transfixed. To this day, Beethoven's Sixth Symphony will, da 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 da, and images will come flooding over me, or Not on Bald Mountain or whatever. It's just.
Well, that's incredible that basically it ended up being your life's work.
Ironic. Yeah.
Working with animation and music. That's amazing.
Back then, I used to. I remember I had a bust of Beethoven in my dormitory room at college, and I think I loved the Sturm und Drang of Beethoven, and the weight of Brahms. But you know, I also grew up loving the musicals of Rodgers and Hammerstein and Frank Lesser. When Janice and I were first together, we loved listening to film scores, John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith film scores.
As soon as Menken could reach the keys, he began loving and playing the piano. He began to compose at an early age, you know. And at age 9, at a New York Junior Composer Contest, his original composition, Bo-Re, Boo-Re, Boo-Ra, Boo-Hoo, however you want to pronounce it, was rated superior and excellent by the judges. Instead of practicing through high school, he riffed and played around on the piano.
I found it very hard to focus on actually reading notes. So I read the beginning of the piece, and then I just sort of, can I just play? And I would then vary the rest of the piece and just keep playing. You know, like there's a Beethoven sonata. I remember going for hours, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, whatever that was, and then I would da-da-da-da-da, and I would just play at the piano. My parents would say, he's practicing for the full hour, but the teacher would say he was not learning anything.
He went on to enroll in New York University, where he graduated with a degree in musicology. You can get a degree in that? Anyway, he got a degree in musicology in 1971. However, when he entered college, he was going for the degree we all go for before switching, pre-med. I had that too. Before, well, the less you know, the better.
All the men in my family were dentists. My grandfather was a dentist, had an office in Harlem. My father was a dentist. My father's brother was a dentist and then an orthodontist. My mother's sister's husband was a dentist. My father's sister's husband was a dentist. My cousins are dentists. And I thought, well, I guess this is what I'll have to do. But I had no interest in actually all of the courses and all of the work that would lead to becoming a dentist, much less an interest in exploring the wonder of people's teeth. So it was very clear, especially when I got to college, that, I was not going to become a dentist. I went to college, I went to NYU as a pre-med, and that fell by the wayside pretty quickly. And I began just writing incessantly. And when I went to college, it was, the years of Bob Dylan and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And so that, plus growing up in a family that loved musical theater, I drew, and I loved classical music. So I drew on all these different sources. And of course, when I finished college, really, and I had to make a living, besides the jobs I had, all the influences that came into me in those first 20 years or 21 years began to work their way into all the influences that became my career. But yes, the world is, I think, very fortunate that I did not become a dentist. When I basically finished with college, I wasn't going to go to graduate school. And actually, NYU requested I not use the degree to go to graduate school because I was such a terrible student. I really was. I was awful. But my parents had a friend named Don Freeberg, who was a composer. And my parents said, well, there's this workshop. And so I went and we sat down with Lehman Engel. And I started just playing my song at the audition. He said, well, I can tell you, you're in. I said, whoa. And I found out later, didn't do that usually.
From 1974 to 1978, he showcased various BMI workshop works, such as Midnight, Apartment House, Conversations with Pierre, Harry the Rat. Hey, I went to high school with that guy. And Messiah on Mott Street. According to Menken, during this period, he worked as a ballet and modern dance accompanist, a musical director for club acts, a jingle writer, arranger, songwriter for Sesame Street, and a vocal coach. He performed his material at clubs like The Ballroom, Reno Sweeney, and Tramps. Tramps. After working a number of years composing off-Broadway as a composer/lyricist, Allen got his big break when he was introduced to the king, Howard Ashman. This part of Allen's career is covered in great detail in this Howard Ashman episode we got right here. But Allen does have a few anecdotes about the various productions he worked with Howard. His first collaboration of note was, what do you call it? Tony, play the song, Tony. What was it?
Little shop, little shop of terror, watch 'em drop. Little shop of
Where his father influenced one of his funniest numbers.
My dad, as a dentist, was the president of the New York chapter of the American Analgesia Society, a society of dentists that promote the use of nitrous oxide as safe. So when Howard Ashman and I were trying to figure out how Seymour would commit the first murder in Little Shop, in the movie, Seymour, I think, takes a bottle and he's frustrated and he throws a bottle off a bridge and it hits a bum on the head and he ends up feeding the bum to Audrey too. We didn't think that would necessarily work on stage. I said, well, how about, because I knew, my dad, his expertise in nitrous oxide, how about we have the dentist like to use nitrous oxide, but he actually uses it for himself to enhance his sadistic pleasures in creating pain. Howard thought that was hilarious.
You'll be a dentist. You have a talent for causing things. Son, be a dentist. People will pay you to be inhumane. Your temperament's wrong for the priesthood, and teaching would suit you still less. Son, be a dentist. You'll be a success.
Now, when the film version of Little Shop of Horrors came around, Allen missed out on a big opportunity.
The movie came out, and I didn't write the underscore. But I did all of the music, obviously for the songs, all of the interstitial music in the scenes. They were written for the stage, and the Golden Globe nominations came out, and Little Shop was nominated for Best Score for a man named Miles Goodman, who wrote 9 minutes of adaptation music for Little Shop. I wasn't eligible because my music had been written for the stage. So the only thing I was eligible for was the new song, which was Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. So when we came around to doing Little Mermaid, it was Howard who said, Allen, you should write the score to this. And I said, but I don't know how to do that. He said, well, you'll learn, it'll help. And I was helped to learn, the craft of writing a film score. And it was an amazing experience. The idea that I won an Oscar for that very first film score is crazy, because it's actually a very simple, very unsophisticated score, but I guess it was sort of perfect for that story.
Oof. Allen has a lot to say about his work on Beauty and the Beast.
Angela almost didn't do the movie, by the way. She heard the initial demo that I had done, which was very, tale as old as time, true as it can be. And she said, well, I don't think it's for me, dear. I don't really sing. And I said, I asked her, which demo did you play for Angela? I said, oh, yours, of course. I said, no, play them Howard's. Howard was much more as old as time. True, is much more in character, much more half spoken. Angela said, oh, I get it. And she was in. When it came to the day of the recording session, Angela came in very prepared. We had already had rehearsed the orchestra. Angela went into the ISO booth and sang it, and was just magic. But, being responsible, we got many other takes from her and had had more to choose from just in case. As far as the palette for Beauty and the Beast clearly is much closer to the traditional world of early Walt Disney, which is a very sort of Bavarian, German sort of countryside. It's a classic fairy tale world. So we drew on a lot of those colors from the classical music, from operetta, and from French music hall. All of those different colors. So you have classical in the nature. There goes the baker with his tray like always, the same old bread and rolls to sell. Every morning just the same. That's one set of colors. Very Mozartian, very classical, very European, German. It's of the time and of the fairy tale world. Then you have the world of Maurice Chevalier and the wonderful. We get to the enchanted objects. Be our guest, put our service to the test. Tie your napkin around your neck, Cherie, and we'll provide their rest. Very simple, almost dumbly simple piece of music in the style of like Thank Heaven for Little Girls, whatever. But it's a perfect bed for Howard Ashman's brilliant lyrics to bounce off of. So you have the classical, you have the French music hall. With Beauty and the Beast, you have really. I was thinking time passage, very transcendent in its basic tone. Tale as old as time. Now, as far as the prologue, interesting story. We had, with every movie, you have temp music. So you have the director will have music that's taken from another source to put under a scene. They used Saint-Saëns' Carnival of the Animals to underscore the prologue. And the Carnival of the Animal goes... and I kept saying, okay, but I'd like to use something from the score. But they were stuck on that piece of music. And I was at the point where they would go, well, maybe we should put that piece of music in. I said, no. So then I said, okay, I got it. So all of those specific threads became the basic threads of the score. And for me, with each project that I do, I want to create a world that from the very beginning, you're walking into a world conceptually that is unique. So the world, you walk into the world of Mermaid or Beauty or Aladdin, each one is a separate world. And I really try to keep, I have these threads that I weave into the score.
After Howard Ashman's death, which you can learn more about here if you got some tissues, and ooh man, let me tell you, you're gonna need them. Alan was left alone with Aladdin as an unfinished product. Eventually, Tim Rice, the prince himself, Tim Rice, was brought on to help finish the film.
I think almost more than any other project, Aladdin has been through so many twists and turns. Howard's and my first approach to Aladdin was, first of all, very much the Hollywood view of the mysterious East. So if you think of the early Bob Hope and Bing Crosby road pictures, like The Road to Morocco, it's like a buddy picture where they're taking an adventure and they're going on this adventure together. And initially, Aladdin really was a buddy picture. It was Aladdin and his buddies, Babcock, Omar, and Kasim. And Jasmine was just kind of a love interest. And it remained that way for quite a while. And then Howard was ill with, as everyone knows, he was HIV positive and then had AIDS. And nobody wanted to trouble him with what they were going through dramaturgically. But a decision was made that we wanted they wanted it to be much more of a romance and not a buddy picture. Thus, a lot of material slid off the table and enter a new collaboration with Tim Rice. And we kept Friend Like Me, Arabian Nights, Prince Ali, from the original score. And we had to cut Proud of Your Boy because it was no longer a mother. And we had to cut Babcock, Omar, Aladdin, Kasim because they weren't the buddies. And so instead of having that ballad, we had the Magic Carpet Ride song, which Howard and I had wanted to write, but Howard was gone by then. So Tim Rice and I wrote A Whole New World.
I remember thinking of Tim and actually thinking of his work on Evita with Andrew Lloyd Webber, and that sort of influenced those parallel sixths. Da 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 da. Don't cry for me, Argentina. It sort of influenced in a way. Da 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 da. Just in a very subtle way, it led me into that kind of Spanish Latin place.
But I sent him a piece of music. I thought I have to send him these pieces of music. So I sent him a dummy lyric that said, "The world at my feet." Da, 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 da. And Tim, when I got there, very wisely had decided that really reference to feet maybe wasn't the best thing to have in the title for a love song.
Tim and Alan worked on 2 songs for the film.
One of the first songs I wrote with Tim Rice was, we were trying to get a big song for Jafar. And as it turned out, the one song we had for Jafar was the reprise of Prince Ali. But we wrote this song called Why Me, which was, we went all the way to final production on. And it was really neat, smart song. Very much in Tim Rice's wheelhouse of clever, urbane lyrics about how Jafar feels very much the way you do, under.
Aladdin, we didn't have a place for our song for our protagonist. Initially, it was going to be Proud of Your Boy, which got cut from the movie. But there was this song we had, One Jump Ahead. One jump ahead of this red line, one step ahead of the sword. I steal only what I can afford. It has this section that goes riff, rap, street rat. So we have to have even a taste of an I Want moment. We need to have that. And I had that whole back and forth with John Musker and Ron Clements, great directors and wonderful friends. We finally had, what key did I do it in? I'm not sure if this is the right key, but. After this big up-tempo chase number, riff raff, street rat, I don't buy that. If only they'd look closer, would they see a poor boy? No siree. They'd find out there's so much more to me.
Now, there was a song that was written by Howard and Alan that was cut. It was called Proud of Your Boy.
I've been one rotten kid, some sun, some pride, and some joy. But I'll get over these lousing up, messing up, screwing up times. You'll see my now comes the better part. Someone's gonna make good, cross his stupid heart. Make good and finally make you proud of your boy.
Proud of Your Boy would go on to be featured in the Broadway version of the film.
Someday and soon, I'll make you proud of your boy. So don't look back, 'cause
'cause the boy that you knew isn't there anymore. And Mom, those dreams that you had for me, I'll make sure that they happen, I guarantee. Mom, I will try hard to make you proud of your boy.
And, well, this is where I'm gonna stop. There's a lot more to talk about with Alan and his career. You got Pocahontas, you got The Hunchback, you got Tangle. I mean, just to name a few, I'm not gonna overload your brain. But this guy, he's still working. He's still working. I think I'll leave y'all with another great quote from Alan that really demonstrates his love for music. Roll the film, Tony.
There is no perfect piece of music. There is no perfect song. There's just whatever song you're going to write, and then you make it as good as it can be. And when you liberate yourself from that, then you go, throw it out, throw this out, throw that out. It's about the process of doing it and loving doing it and having fun doing it.
Before we start, don't forget to check out our Patreon, our Discord, and of course, like and subscribe. So, let's recap. Start the clock! Alan Menken was born in 1949 in Manhattan, New York. After working with Howard Ashman on God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater and Little Shop of Horrors, Alan and Howard headed to Disney, where together they wrote music for The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. Unfortunately, Howard Ashman died shortly before Beauty and the Beast debuted, leaving Aladdin unfinished. Instead, Alan teamed up with Tim Rice, and together they wrote A Whole New World, One Jump, and Prince Ali. And this is where today's episode begins. Stop the clock! Thank you. In 1991, Alan signed a 7-year deal with Walt Disney Studios to write songs and scores for various features. With lyricist Jack Feldman, he scored and composed songs for the 1992 Disney release Newsies, an ill-fated live-action musical, which we will talk more about later. He also teamed up with lyricist David Spencer for an off-Broadway production of a science fiction musical, Weird Romance. However, we're here for animation, so sorry, Broadway fans and awkward theater kids. Alan's next animation project was a very ambitious one.
Pocahontas! Your father's back! Come down here! He's back, Flick.
Howard and Alan had initially been planning to write songs for Pocahontas once they were finished working on Aladdin, which you can watch more about right here. Unfortunately, Howard passed away in 1991, leaving Alan finishing Aladdin with Tim Rice. When work on Aladdin was finished, Menken was expected to write songs for Pocahontas with Rice, but he was deemed too hard to get a hold of because he was always gallivanting around the world. Probably by magic carpet. Am I right, folks? So, Stephen Schwartz, who previously worked on musicals as Working, Rags, and Children of Eden, was brought on board. He had quit theater and was taking psychology courses at NYU, and was brought on board to write lyrics for Pocahontas. Although their work included moments of tension, because Schwartz was capable of writing music and Menken had experience with lyrics, they were still able to write some amazing songs and had a strong working relationship. Let's look at two of the film's greatest songs and see how they came to be. The first song to be written for the film was Colors of the Wind.
The only people who are people, the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew, you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon? Or asked the grinning bobcat why he grinned? And you sing with all the voices of the mountain, you paint with all the colors of the wind.
It's a song with, I think, both a very strong musical identity and a strong thematic identity. It galvanized Pocahontas. It lifted everything. There's a certain way when something works and something functions and really helps the story in a really powerful way, it elevates that work. And Colors obviously felt like an important song from an important project.
Schwartz began writing Colors with a few draft ideas for lyrics taking inspiration from Chief Seattle's Letter to the United States Congress. Then, Menken wrote the melody with Schwartz listening at the piano and making suggestions. Just Around the River Bend was devised by Schwartz's wife, Carol, with the idea that Pocahontas would have a reoccurring dream that suggested something coming her way, paving the way for her I Want song. Wait, you may ask, what's an I Want song?
Well, Howard, take it away.
The second number is the one where the girl sits on the trash can and sings about what she wants, like Eliza Doolittle did once upon a time, and Fiona whatever her name is in Brigadoon. Women have been doing that in musicals for years. The difference is that our girl, Audrey, is singing about a toaster and a tract house and a garbage disposal instead of a castle in the sky somewhere.
So for Pocahontas, it's...
Just around the river bend, just around the river bend. Should I choose the smoothest course, steady as the beating drum? Should I marry Cocoam? Is all my dreaming at an end?
The song almost didn't make it into the completed film when Disney executives doubted whether the song would have the kind of impact they wanted. Schwartz, however, stated he and Menken believed in it very strongly. Indeed, at one point we wrote a different song for that spot, but Alan and I were never as happy with the second song, and ultimately everybody at Disney came to feel that way too. Kind of crazy to think about Pocahontas without Just Around the River Bend. That'd be like Dumbo without his ears, or The Haunted Mansion without Eddie Murphy. Okay, maybe not the second one, I guess. In 1994, Alan returned to Broadway with Beauty and the Beast, which opened at the Palace Theater and ran until 1999, with 5,510 performances. Beauty and the Beast was nominated for 9 Tony Awards, one of which was Best Original Score, nominated for 10 Dramatists Awards, including Outstanding Music, won the Laurence Olivier Award for Best New Musical, and was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Musical Show Album. But hey, who's counting? Back at the Disney Studios, Menken partnered again with Stephen Schwartz on The Hunchback of Notre Dame. However, because the music in this movie is so powerful and nuanced, we will be covering Alan's role in another video. You're welcome. Alan's next animated project required him to go the distance. Anybody? Come on. Whatever.
You go, okay, look, what's the vocabulary? How do I want to tell this story? Okay, I'm going to tell Hercules through gospel music, let's say, which is what it's a fairly arbitrary choice, but okay, that's what the assignment is. That's what we're doing. Then you begin writing, and as you begin to write, not only are you creating songs, but you're creating threads that you can go back to, colors that you go back to and use. So what if I have that iconic... Well, now, anytime I go to something in Hercules, there can be so many of those kind of tonalities. Very much a fanfare, very much hero. I have often dreamed of a far-off place where a hero's welcome would be waiting for me. We had written a different song for Roger, or for the character of Hercules, I should say, called Shooting Star. And I see my shooting star set apart from all the rest, while the other stars are standing still. He's on a quest. That was originally the song we wrote for Hercules. It's a very sweet song. It was actually making the character land in too soft a way. We said we need really to emphasize the sort of the muscularity of his journey and the drive of his journey. So then we went to this. It's much more. It's like those horns, hunting horns and charging into battle. And that really became one of the tent poles for the score to Hercules. Once I wrote this piece of music and David Zippel wrote that lyric. The gospel of the score was mostly for the music, and Hercules was not a gospel. He didn't carry the gospel style in his songs. His songs were more in this heroic journey drawn from really, in a sense, classical music, a little bit of Wagner in there, a little bit of, but also a little bit of power rock in there. I've always said the great thing about David's lyrics with Hercules is
you have that kind of almost Cole Porterish kind of cleverness and sophistication against a very earthy, but then you get to the ballad, and David, that he sort of, in a way, he scales back the cleverness to go to the heartfelt part of that.
The film opens with a rousing number called The Gospel Truth, which is spiritedly sung by the Muses, Greek goddesses of the arts who pop up throughout the film, kind of like... Well, you can't fault a guy for having his favorite plot devices. And I quote, "The Muses are just pure fun. For this song, we wanted something kind of Motown and a bit sexy.
He hurls his thunderbolt. He's out, locked those suckers in a vault. They're trapped. And on his own stops chaos in its tracks. And that's the gospel. The time was too tight to just relax. And that's the world's first dish. Yeah, baby.
I mean, the Muses were so great to work with. Roz Ryan, Lilias White. They were so wonderful. We had so much fun, and working in with these great black choir, gospel influence with black singers and choirs was such a joy for me.
Menken and Zippel switched to a bouncy vaudeville style for One Last Hope, sung by Danny DeVito as Phil.
So Danny DeVito played Philocrates, Phil, in Hercules, and we had the song One Last Hope. And Danny came in and goes, and Danny's not really a singer, but I knew what I had. All I had to do was tell Danny one name, and I knew he'll get it. I said, Danny, Jimmy Durante, just do Jimmy Durante. I'm down to one last hope, and I hope.
Here's a fun fact for you. For another song, I Won't Say, Menken originally wanted the Spice Girls. The problem was schedules and albums. They just couldn't do it, which was a shame, he says. So instead, the song is sung by the beautiful heroine Megara, backed by the Muses featuring Lilias White, Venice Y. Thomas, Cheryl Freeman, LaShans, and Royce Ryan. It's a love song with a sense of humor, says lyricist Zippel.
I thought my heart had learned its lesson. It feels so good when you start out. My head is screaming, get a grip, girl. Unless you're dying to cry your heart out. You keep on denying who you are and how you're feeling, baby. We're not buying, but we saw you hit the scene and face it like a grown-up. When you're gonna own up that you got it back.
After Hercules, Alan's contract was up, and so he went back to Broadway. You just can't stop this guy from going to the Great White Way. In 1999, he worked on Der Glocker von Notre Dame, which is a German adaptation of Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It was produced in the Stella Theater in Berlin. To serve Menken's and Schwartz and James Lapine's writing process, the musical was rehearsed in English and then translated and performed by the very same actors in German. In 2001, Alan was honored as a Disney legend, and in 2003, Little Shop of Horrors was revived on Broadway. In 2004, Alan was called back to the Disney studio to write music for Home on the Range.
I remember when I was writing for Home on the Range, I wanted a song, and it was after 9/11 too, and it was the song that actually ended up expressing how I felt about 9/11. Bonnie Raitt ended up recording it, and I remember I was listening to Patti Loveless, I think, some, like Appalachian kind of roots American music, and then I came up with, rain is pouring down like the heavens are hurting. Seems like it's been dark since the devil knows when. How do you go on, never knowing for certain? Will the sun ever shine again? Da 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 da. And I remember sitting down and giving a piece of music to Glenn, and Glenn just said, "Oh, damn you," because it just kind of.
Yeah,
it just sort of came out.
Maybe soon the storm will be tired of blowing. Maybe soon it all will be over, amen. How do you go on if there's no way of knowing? Will the sun ever shine? Wish I could say.
As you can see, Alan really lives in two worlds. One is film, and the other is stage. From this point in his career, we're going to focus more on his film side. Sorry, theater kids. His film career mostly involves a series of one-off songs for a mix of movies. One was The Star-Spangled Man from Captain America.
The assignment was to write a USO song. And, you know, the USO, the tradition, I go back to if you go to YouTube, to put an Irving Berlin USO, and he's standing there going, you know, you're in the army now, you da 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 da. We associate USO with the World War II, really, numbers. Now, it was USO, obviously, beyond that, but I really wanted to draw on that period. So, Star-Spangled Man was written in that style. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Very, again, as simple and basic and clear musically as I could be, and allow David Zippel's lyrics to just, you know, pop off that. And the music does not need to call attention to itself. All it needs to do is just establish a groundwork so we know what the tone is. We know what the era that we're winking at is, what the style we're winking at, and then that number.
In 2016, Alan contributed to Sausage Party, where he co-wrote the score with Christopher Lenertz and penned an original song, The Great Beyond, with lyricist Glenn Slater and co-writers Rogan and Evan Goldberg. And in a wonderful parody of his own style, Alan collaborated with lyricist Phil Johnston and Tom McDougall on the song Slaughter Race. Recently, Alan has enjoyed seeing his work breathe new life with live-action film adaptations, Beauty and the Beast in 2017 and Aladdin in 2019. When asked if he was bothered by others adapting his work, he said no.
It's the stupidest thing I can do is try to jump in there and have a huge influence, because I've already had the animated. We already had the Broadway show. Please God, do what you want. Make it.
I think you've earned the position of, let them do it.
Make it fresh.
God bless.
Yeah. The last thing I want is every version of Aladdin to have ba da 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 da. I can show. No, I want every different one should have its own arrangement, and should be fresh and new. And last thing I want is for it to feel like you took one and then moved it there and then moved it there. And I can, to an extent, reinvent it maybe, but I'm so much better off allowing others to bring their influences to bear on it. That's why I like the mindset of a composer who does what I do, and what those of us who work in musical theater or musicals in general, that we're architects. We design a house that others live in.
Nice.
And design it really well. Put all the work into designing it. I want the rooms in the right place. I want that. I need, the stairway has got to come to the right opening. It's all got to work. And then people, maybe there'll be 100 owners of that house or for that blueprint, and everyone's going to do their own thing with it. And that's great.
Alan is currently working with little-known Broadway up-and-comer Lin-Manuel Miranda on the live-action The Little Mermaid, coming out in 2023.
When my success was happening, I kept hearing about this little boy. His name was Lin-Manuel Miranda, and Lin went to Hunter School, and with my niece Jenny. And my sister would say, "This is boy Lin. He's a fanatical fan, and he loves Little Mermaid. And would you sign this poster?" And you flash forward, and now, of course, Lin and I are actually wrote songs together for the new Little Mermaid movie, and we're dear friends. And Bobby Lopez, also I would hear about when he was a kid. I wrote his recommendation for college, and Bobby, of course, wrote Frozen and Book of Mormon and Avenue Q. And Ben Pasek and Justin Paul, who wrote La La Land, and I met them when they were at University of Michigan. They had graduated, but I met them there because my daughter went there. And we wrote together for the Aladdin movie. So there's this wonderful connection I'm feeling with these artists. I'm collaborating with them. It's I love it. It's if you got to grow old, it's great to feel your influence on other people.
If you're looking for a project that's coming out sooner, we have Disenchanted coming out in autumn of this year.
It's good.
Good. I can't wait for it. I cannot wait for it.
I think people are going to love it.
It's good.
It's really good, and I mean, it's got I think twice as many songs as the original, and they're all good.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, they've let us go whole hog. It's a great story premise. Amy again is amazing. Patrick Dempsey is back. We have a big song for Idina Menzel, Nancy.
Oh, good.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
okay.
I know.
Yes.
We tried first time around. We weren't able to get it in there.
It's really nice of you to be able to bring her voice to the world, right? Little known Idina Menzel, right?
Yes, exactly. Jimmy Marsden, we have a bunch of new people who are singing. Maya Rudolph is in it. We have two really wonderful young talents. One playing Morgan and a new boyfriend. So I think it's wonderful. And they just finished filming. They filmed in Dublin, and I'm now in the midst of scoring it right now, and it's I'm having a ball.
Well, wouldn't you know it? There's a whole nother episode about Alan Menken where we will talk about the plethora of projects we had to skip over to make this episode a decent length. But never fear, that episode is going to be coming out soon, and your patience is going to be rewarded with an episode packed with the knowledge you crave. Until then.
Well, thanks for everything, Herc. It's been a real slice.
Thank you to these people for your generous support, and a special thank you to John David. You guys are really helping keep this channel afloat. Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Don't forget to check out our Patreon and Discord, and click the thumbs up button below if you liked the video. And if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, subscribe and click the bell. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another Discography.